Precious metals are less challenging psychologically than uranium was. When people look at precious metals and they get bored by it, people looked at uranium and they hated it. I would talk about uranium from the podium, and people would come up to me after a public speaking engagement and tell me I was a despicable human being, that I was speculating on Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Fukushima, and 3 Mile Island. At least in the gold and silver business, I draw yawns as opposed to hostility. I think one thing that happens to people around the precious metal sector is when they buy into the narrative, they overbuy, which is to say a little bit goes a long way in precious metals. Precious metals can go very long periods of time, 6 or 7 years, and make you no money. But when they do make you money, they make you gobs of money, and they make you that money quickly. So you need to be in place at the beginning of a market, and you need to have a fairly broad range of tolerance for time. You and I have talked for years about the Barron's Gold Mining Index, which I will send to those listeners of yours who are interested. And looking at that index is really instructive. The average precious metals bull market is not like some people think, 2 or 3 years. The average is 10 or 11 years. And those bull markets are punctuated by fairly long and fairly deep market declines, which is to say cyclical declines in secular bull markets. In 1975, as an example, there was a 50% decline that lasted 14 months. People who got shaken out missed a move at the end of that market from $100 an ounce to $850 an ounce. And they missed a move in the equity indexes that was almost double that. So I think it's important that people understand that these markets take time and that these markets, the volatility in these markets, will test you. I think, too, that people need to examine their premise around precious metals. I believe that a move higher in precious metals is absolutely inevitable. And I believe that to be true for 4 reasons, which I'd like to give your listeners. Precious metals move higher when people are concerned about the maintenance of their purchasing power, their standard of living, in conventional savings instruments. And I'm going to use the U.S. 10-year Treasury, the largest and most liquid security in the world, to represent the range of savings and investment alternatives around Americans. So let's talk about the reasons why I believe that gold and silver has to go up. Is this fear justified? The first fear, which you and I have talked about before, Dunnigan, is quantitative easing. If you did it, if you printed something called a Dunnigan, you would be accused of counterfeiting and you would be thrown in jail. When Congress does it, it's policy, and they become highly popular, and it gets them reelected. But however you view quantitative easing, what it is the creation of new specious currency units that are introduced to float the economy rather than to accommodate the economy. Some observers suggest that the float of U.S. dollars has increased by 40% over 2 years, which is to say 40% of all the dollars in circulation have come into existence in the last 2 years. So clearly, government-sponsored counterfeiting is taking place on a very, very, very broad scale. And if nothing else gives you pause about the efficacy of the currency, the fact that they're printing lots and lots and lots of it for free means that you need to be concerned. Will it catch up with the dollar? Almost certainly. If you create new ones, if you create new supply without creating economic value, certainly you depreciate the value of existing ones. But the story gets worse, Donegan. Beyond quantitative easing, there's, of course, debt and deficits, which you and I have talked about in the past, too. Collectively in the United States, we owe each other $29 trillion on balance sheet. Now, net of the Fed's own balance sheet, that's only $22 trillion. But that's on balance sheet. We also have off-balance sheet liabilities, Social Security, Medicare, all those things. I'm not going to get into a policy discussion. All I want to say is that the off-balance sheet liabilities, net present value, are $120 trillion plus. And we propose to service this debt with a budget that's in deficit this year, probably $4 trillion. There's a little poem that I'd like your listeners to remember. When your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep becomes your downfall. And people need to understand that servicing $150 trillion in debt, where your aggregate household income is more than $4 trillion a year, is a challenge. And so people look at this and they become concerned about the efficacy of their savings too. But it gets worse. The worst is negative real interest rates. Negative real interest rates are not a force of nature. If they were, Dunnigan, you would happily save, forego consumption, and lend money to me and pay me to consume now and take on the credit risk. This is totally insane.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Stan, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I intend, how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Stan.